They found her at the edge of Hollow Creek before dawn, curled in the dirt like something thrown from a wagon and forgotten. Garrett Cole saw her while checking fence line. Horse stopped on its own, knew before he did that something living was down there in the dust. She was breathing, that was all. Bruise across her temple, dried blood in her hair. Dress torn at the shoulder, she didn't move when his shadow crossed her. He crouched slow, hands visible. "You hurt?" She flinched, drew her arms tighter around herself. That's when he saw them. Rope marks circling both wrists, old and white like scars from shackles. He looked at her face. She looked at nothing. "Got a house 8 minutes that way," he said. "You can come with or stay here and die. Your call." Long silence. Wind moved the dust between them. Finally, she pushed herself up, didn't take his offered hand, just stood, swaying, and waited. He walked toward the house. After a moment, she followed. She sat at his table like a wolf in a trap, still, watching, ready to bolt or bite. Garrett filled a tin cup with water from the pump, set it in front of her. She didn't reach for it. He cut bread, laid it on a plate. She stared at it like it might be poisoned. The house was small. One main room with a cook stove, table, 2 chairs. Door to a bedroom he didn't use anymore. Everything clean but empty. No curtains, no pictures, nothing soft. Her eyes kept going to the shelf above the stove. Blue enamel coffee cup sitting there alone, dust-free. She started to stand. "Sit," he said. She sat. He pulled the other chair, turned it backwards, straddled it, kept distance between them. "You got a name?" "Nothing." "Anyone looking for you?" Her jaw tightened. "All right." He stood. "Barns out back, lofts dry. You can sleep there till you figure where you're going." She stood fast, defensive. "I ain't asking for nothing," he said, flat. "And I ain't offering nothing but a place to sleep. That work for you?" Long pause. She nodded once. He pointed at the bread. "Eat or don't. Your business." Then he walked out. Hour later, Doc Amelia Voss arrived in her small black buggy, medical bag in hand. Garrett had ridden into town at first light, caught her before rounds. "She in the house?" Doc asked. "Barn." Doc raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She was 50, gray-haired, widow of the town's previous doctor. Inherited his practice in his spine. They found Cora in the loft, standing in the corner like she'd been waiting for them to come finish what someone else started. "Child, I'm a doctor," Amelia said, voice calm. "I need to look at your head. That all right?" Cora's eyes went to Garrett. "I'll be outside," he said, and climbed down. He stood by the barn door, listening to the murmur of voices above. Doc's low and steady. Cora's, when she spoke at all, sharp and small, 15 minutes. Then Doc climbed down alone, wiping her hands on a cloth. "She'll live," Amelia said. "Concussion's mild. Bruising'll fade. But Garrett—" She stopped, looked at him square. "Those marks on her wrists, rope burns. Old ones, maybe 2 weeks healed. And newer ones underneath." "She tell you anything?" "No, but she didn't have to." Doc packed her bag. "Someone kept her tied, and she got free." Garrett said nothing. "You know who she is?" "No." "You plan to find out?" "Don't much care." As Doc studied him. Looked past him at the house. The empty porch. The rocking chair no one sat in anymore. The windows that didn't glow at night. "Town will," she said quietly. "Let 'em." She touched his arm. "You're a good man, Garrett Cole, but good don't always protect you." "Ain't trying to protect me." Doc nodded slow. "That's what worries me." Night came fast. Garrett ate standing by the stove. Salt pork and cornbread, same as always. Looked out the window at the barn. Lamp still burning in the loft. He washed his plate, left hers on the table in case she came in hungry later. Laid down on the floor by the cook stove. Bedroll thin. Didn't bother with the bedroom anymore. Couldn't stand the silence in there. Sleep came hard. Then, sound from the barn. He sat up, listened. Coyotes howling, close. Real close. They did that sometimes. Came down from the hills when prey was scarce. Then another sound. Scrambling, something hitting wood. He pulled his boots on, grabbed the lamp, went out. Barn door open. He climbed the ladder slow. She was pressed into the corner, breathing fast, eyes wide and black in the lamplight. "It's just coyotes," he said. "They won't come in." She didn't move, didn't blink. He set the lamp on a beam, sat down at the top of the ladder, didn't climb into the loft, just sat there, legs dangling. Outside, the coyotes howled again. She flinched. "They're more scared of you than you are of them," he said. "I ain't scared," she whispered. First words she'd spoken direct to him. "All right." Silence. "Then why you shaking?" he asked. No answer. The coyotes called and called, then moved on. Wind picked up, boards creaked. Garrett didn't move, just sat there, back against the frame, lamp casting long shadows. Her breathing slowed. After a while, she slid down the wall, pulled her knees up. "Why?" she whispered. "Why what? Why you doing this?" He thought about it. About Mary burning with fever while he rode out to fix fence because he couldn't watch. About Rebecca packing her things 6 months later, wouldn't even look at him. About 3 years of this house echoing empty. Didn't figure you had to ask, he said finally. She was quiet a long time. I'll be gone soon, she said. All right. I mean it. I believe you. More silence, then softer. You always this strange? Almost smiled. Didn't. You always this much trouble? She didn't answer. But he thought maybe, in the dark, she might have smiled too. Dawn came cold. Garrett woke stiff, still sitting against the barn wall where he'd stayed all night. Couldn't remember falling asleep. Couldn't remember her falling asleep either. But when he climbed the ladder to check, she was curled on her side in the hay, breathing steady. He climbed back down, quiet, walked to the house, made coffee, started bacon in the skillet. 10 minutes later, he looked up. She was standing in the doorway, hay in her hair, watching him. You sleep out there? She asked. Some. Why? Case the coyotes came back. She stared at him, trying to figure if he was lying, trying to figure why he wasn't asking for anything in return. Finally, you got a name? Garrett Cole. Cora, she said. Then, like she regretted it. Cora Finch. He nodded, didn't push for more. Coffee? He asked. She looked at the pot, at him, at the blue cup still sitting on the shelf, untouched. Yeah, she said. All right. He poured her a tin cup, handed it over. She took it careful, like she'd never been given something without a price. They drank in silence, while the bacon hissed and the sun came up pale and slow. And for the first time in 3 years, Garrett Cole's kitchen didn't feel like a tomb. 3 days, and she still hadn't told him where she came from, but she'd started washing his dishes without asking. Garrett woke the 4th morning to find her already up, sweeping dust from the porch. She'd moved into the house the night before, when rain started. He'd insisted, said the barn roof leaked. She'd taken the bedroom, he stayed on his bedroll by the stove. Felt strange, having someone else in the house. Strange in a way that hurt and helped at the same time. He made coffee, fried eggs, set 2 plates on the table. She came in, saw the food, hesitated. Go on, he said. She picked up the plate, started eating standing by the window. He watched her a moment. The way she ate fast, like someone might take it, the way she kept her back to the wall, eyes on the door. You can sit, he said. She glanced at the empty chair, shook her head slightly, kept standing. He didn't push it. After breakfast, she washed both plates before he could stop her, scrubbed them clean, set them to dry. He watched her hands move, quick, efficient, like she'd done this work before, like she knew what it meant to earn her keep. Don't have to do that, he said. I know. Yeah, and then why? She didn't answer, just kept washing. Outside, the sky was clear. Work needed doing, fence line to check, cattle to move to fresh grass. He pulled on his hat, headed for the door. I'll be back before dark, he said. She nodded. Didn't ask where he was going. Didn't ask if she could come. When he returned that evening, the house smelled different. Clean. She'd scrubbed the floor, wiped down the table, even washed the windows. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, not sure what to say. Found some soap in the barn, she said, defensive. Figured it was gonna waste. It's fine. I just thought, it's fine, he said again. Looks good. She relaxed slightly. Went back to folding a cloth she'd been using. That night, they ate in silence. But it was a different kind of silence than before. Less afraid, more just quiet. 5th day, she asked about the chickens. You got hens? She said, looking out at the small coop near the barn. 6. Used to have more. They need feeding? He showed her how. Scattered corn, checked for eggs. She was awkward at first. City-raised, he figured. Moved too fast and spooked them. One hen pecked her hand hard. She jerked back, swore under her breath. He almost smiled. First real emotion he'd seen from her besides fear. They do that, he said. Mean little bastards. Yeah. She looked at him, caught the almost smile. Something shifted in her face, guard dropping just a fraction. You think that's funny? Little bit. I could have lost a finger. Could have. She shook her head, but there was something lighter in it, almost like the start of ease. That afternoon, she was putting away clean rags in the bedroom when she found the trunk. It sat at the foot of the bed, old cedar, brass hinges dark with age. She shouldn't have opened it, knew that. But her hands moved anyway, lifting the lid. Inside, a child's dress. Yellow cotton with small white flowers, carefully folded. Dust-free, like someone tended it. She lifted it out, held it up. Small, maybe 6, 7 years old. There was a tear in the hem, never mended. Behind her, but what are you doing? She spun. Garrett stood in the doorway, face gone hard as stone. I'm sorry, I was just... Put it back. I didn't mean... Put it back. His voice flat. cold. She folded the dress fast, set it in the trunk, closed the lid careful. Silence stretched tight between them. "You got a girl?" she asked quietly. His jaw worked. Long pause. Then, "Had one." The past tense hit like a fist. Cora went still. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He didn't answer. Just stood there, looking at the trunk like it held something he couldn't bear to see and couldn't bear to throw away. Finally, "Her name was Mary." Cora nodded, didn't ask more. Could see the answer in his face, the way grief had carved itself into his bones and made a home there. "I had a sister once," she said. Surprised herself saying it. "Lost her to fever when I was 14. He looked at her then, really looked. Saw someone who understood that particular kind of empty. "I'm sorry," he said. "Yeah." She touched the trunk lid lightly. "Me too." Neither of them moved for a long moment. Two people standing in a dead girl's room, carrying their own dead, trying to figure out how to keep living anyway. Then Garrett turned, walked out. She followed after a moment, left the trunk closed. That night, she made cornbread. Not asked, just did it. He came in from checking the horses, found her pulling it from the oven. "Didn't know you could cook," he said. "Can't. Not really, but cornbread's hard to ruin." He sat. She cut 2 pieces, put one on his plate. Sat down across from him, first time she'd sat at the table. He noticed, but didn't mention it. They ate. The cornbread was dry, little too much salt. He ate every bite. "It's bad," she said. "It's fine." "You're lying." "Yeah." Almost smile again. From both of them this time? Saturday. Town day. Garrett said he needed to go in for supplies, salt and flour running low. "You should stay here," he said, pulling on his coat. She nodded fast. Wasn't planning on going. Something in her voice. Relief. Like town was the last place she wanted to be seen. He wanted to ask. Didn't. Back before supper. She watched him ride out, then went back to weeding the kitchen garden. Small plot behind the house, half dead from neglect. She'd started clearing it yesterday. Something to do with her hands. Hour later, she heard a horse. Looked up. Not Garrett. Older man, maybe 52, riding slow. One hand on the reins. His left arm ended at the wrist, leather cap over the stump. He dismounted, careful, tied his horse. Saw her standing there, dirt on her hands. "Afternoon, ma'am." She didn't answer. Back toward the house. "Easy now," he said, hands visible. "I'm Eli Tuft. Friend of Garrett's. Just came to check on him. He ain't here." "I see that." He looked at her steady. At the clean porch, the weeded garden, the mended shirt hanging on the line. "You must be the girl he found." "I ain't." She stopped. "He tell you about me?" "Didn't have to. Saw Doc Voss," she mentioned. He stepped closer, slow. "You got a name?" "Cora." "Well, Miss Cora. I'm glad Garrett's got someone here. House has been too quiet too long." She studied him, trying to figure his angle. "What do you want?" Eli's face went serious. "Came to give you a warning. Merrick's men been in town, asking about a girl. Brown hair, scars on her wrists, said she ran from a contract." Cora's face went white. "I'm guessing that's you," Eli said quietly. She didn't answer. Couldn't. "Don't know what you ran from," Eli said. "Don't need to, but Merrick's not a man who lets things go. He's got money, got the law in his pocket. You understand what I'm saying?" "Yeah." Her voice small. "I understand." Eli nodded, looked at her with something like pity. "Garrett's a good man, best I know, but he can't protect you from everything." "I know." "Do you?" He softened. "Look, child, I don't know your story, but I know trouble when I see it, and you're carrying a mountain of it." "I'll leave," she said. "Soon as he gets back. I'll go." "That what you want?" "Don't matter what I want." Eli studied her, the way she held herself, ready to run, ready to disappear. "He needs you here," he said. "Don't know if you see that, but he does. He don't even know me. Sometimes that's enough." He tipped his hat, mounted his horse. "Be careful, Miss Cora, and tell Garrett I stopped by." She watched him ride off, then went inside, sat at the table, and put her head in her hands. When Garrett came home at dusk, she was gone from the garden. He found her in the barn loft, sitting in the dark. "You all right?" he called up. Long pause. Then, "Your friend came by." "Eli." "Yeah." He climbed the ladder, sat beside her in the hay, not too close. "What did he say?" "That someone's looking for me." Garrett nodded slow, had figured that was coming. "You gonna ask who?" she said. "No." "Why not?" "'Cause when you're ready, you'll tell me. And if you ain't ever ready, that's fine too." She looked at him in the near dark, trying to understand what kind of man didn't demand answers. "I don't know how long I can stay," she whispered. then stay till you can't. And that was all he said about it. She'd been there 9 days when he came home and found his daughter's dress hanging on the line, mended, clean, and waiting. Garrett stopped in the yard, reins going slack in his hand. The yellow cotton moved slightly in the breeze. White flowers bright against the late afternoon sun. The tear in the hem was gone. Tiny perfect stitches, thread matched so close you'd have to look hard to see the repair. He stood there a long time, just looking. Behind him, the kitchen door opened. Cora stepped out, saw where he was staring, went still. "I shouldn't have," she said quietly. "I know. But it was torn, and I couldn't just leave it that way." He walked to the line, touched the fabric. The stitches were small, even, done with care, done with love. "Where'd you learn to sew like this?" His voice rough. "My sister taught me, before she died." He nodded slowly, kept touching the mended hem like it was something holy. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I know." "Then why?" She looked at him across the yard. Something in her face, vulnerable, uncertain. "It was torn, now it ain't." Long silence. Wind moved through the cottonwoods by the creek. Finally, he turned to her, met her eyes. "Thank you." 2 simple words. But the way he said them, like they cost him something. Like he hadn't said them to anyone in years. She nodded once, looked away fast, like the moment was too much to hold. He led his horse to the barn. She went back inside. Neither spoke of it again that day. But that night, when she poured coffee, she used the blue enamel cup for the first time. Set it in front of him without asking. He looked at the cup, at her. She met his gaze, defiant, waiting for him to snap like he had before. He didn't, just wrapped his hands around it and drank. Evening came soft. They sat on the porch, first time together, not just passing through space but actually sitting. Him in the old chair, her on the step. Coyotes started up in the hills, distant. "They come close?" she asked. "Sometimes." "You ever shoot 'em?" "No, they're just trying to survive. Like everything else out here." She thought about that. Most men would shoot anyway. "I ain't most men." "Yeah," she said quietly. "I noticed." Silence stretched between them, comfortable silence now. The kind that didn't need filling. "What was her name?" Cora asked. "Your girl." He stiffened. Then slow. "Mary." "How old?" 6. His voice barely there. "She'd be 9 now." Cora nodded, picked at a splinter in the porch step. "My sister was 10 when the fever took her. I was 14. Felt like the end of everything." "Yeah." "You ever get past it? The feeling like you could have done something?" He looked at her. Really looked. "No, don't reckon you do." "That's what I figured." More silence. Not empty, full of things neither could say. Finally, Cora spoke again, softer. "Why'd you take me in?" He'd known the question was coming. Had thought about it every day since he found her. Still didn't have a good answer. "Didn't figure you had to be wanted," he said finally. "Just figured you had to be." She went quiet, turned those words over in her mind. "That don't make sense." "Makes sense to me." Why?" He looked out at the land, the darkening fields, the fence line he checked every morning out of guilt, the empty barn where his daughter used to help him feed horses. "'Cause I spent 3 years thinking I didn't deserve to be here either," he said. "And I'm still here. So I reckon you got the same right." She looked at him different after that. Like she was trying to figure out if he was real or if he'd disappear when she stopped watching. "Your wife," she said carefully. "She leave because of—" "Yeah. I'm sorry. Don't be." "She was right to go. I failed them both." "Did you?" He met her eyes. "I knew Mary was sick. Saw the fever starting. And I rode out to check fence line anyway, 'cause I couldn't stand to watch her burn. By the time I got back," he stopped. "Rebecca never forgave me. Can't say I blame her." Cora was quiet a long moment, then, "You were scared. That ain't an excuse." "Didn't say it was. But it's human." He shook his head. "Human don't make it right." "No," she agreed. "But it makes it real." They sat in that truth together. Both people who'd failed. Both people trying to figure out how to live with it. "I had a sister once," Cora said again, but this time there was more. "Lost her to fever, too. I was 14. After that, there was just me. No family, no money. So I did what girls do when they got nothing else." She paused. "I survived. And survival makes you do things you ain't proud of." He waited, didn't push. "I ain't asking you to understand," she said. "Just telling you so you know what you took in." "Already know what I took in," he said quietly. "A person. That's enough." She looked at him. Something in her eyes broke and healed at the same time. "No one's ever—" She stopped, started again. "Most people look at me and see what I was. You look at me and I don't know what you see, but it ain't that." I see someone who mends things, he said. Someone who makes cornbread even when it turns out bad. Someone who's trying. That enough for you? More than enough. The night settled around them. Stars coming out, bright and cold. I'm gonna have to leave, she said. You know that, right? Merrick, whoever's looking for me, they're gonna find me eventually. Maybe. And when they do, it'll be bad for you. Let me worry about that. Garrett, you planning to leave tonight? No. Tomorrow? No. Then stop talking about it, he said. Stay till you can't. Rest is just noise. She almost smiled. Almost. Next morning, Garrett took her to check the fence line. Taught her how to spot breaks, how to tell if cattle had been pushing through or if weather did the damage. You do this every day? She asked. Yeah. Why? He didn't answer right away. Kept walking, eyes on the wire. After Mary died, I started checking it every morning. Told myself if I just kept the fences tight, kept everything secure, maybe nothing else would break. He paused. Didn't work, but I kept doing it anyway. She understood. The ritual of it. The trying to control something when everything else was chaos. Guess we all got our fences, she said. Yeah, reckon we do. They walked the property line together side by side, two people trying to hold their broken worlds together with wire and hope. That afternoon, they rode into town for supplies. Garrett needed nails, and the flour was truly gone now. Cora stayed close, hat pulled low, didn't speak to anyone. At the general store, Sheriff Amos Parrish was waiting. Older man, silver mustache, eyes that missed nothing. Garrett, he said, nodded. Sheriff? Parrish looked at Cora, long, assessing look. Ma'am? She nodded back, silent. Got word Merrick's looking for a girl, Parrish said, conversational but pointed. Runaway. You seen anyone fitting that description? Garrett's jaw tightened. No, sir. All right. Parrish's eyes stayed on Cora. Funny, 'cause I heard Doc Voss treated someone out at your place recently. Doc treats lots of people. Not lots of runaways from legal contracts. Don't know what you're talking about. Parrish stepped closer, lowered his voice. Listen, Cole, I got respect for you. Good man, hard worker. Kept your head down after. But Merrick ain't someone to cross. He's got lawyers, got money, and he's got a claim. If you're harboring... I ain't harboring nobody, Garrett said, flat. She's staying with me of her own free will. That ain't how he sees it. Don't much care how he sees it. Parrish sighed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Or maybe you are, Garrett said. Paid for his supplies, took Cora's arm gentle. Come on. They walked out. Behind them, Parrish watched with something like pity. In the wagon, Cora was shaking. He knows, she whispered. I know. They're gonna come for me. Let 'em. Garrett, you don't understand what Merrick... Don't have to understand him, Garrett said. Just have to understand you're staying. Rest'll sort itself. She looked at him, this man who kept choosing her when everyone else would have handed her over. This man who'd lost everything and still had room for mercy. Why? She whispered. He met her eyes. Told you already, you got a right to be. And he meant it. Eli showed up at dusk with a warning Garrett didn't want to hear, and a truth Cora couldn't run from. He rode in, slow-faced grave. Garrett was splitting wood by the barn, saw Eli's expression and set the axe down. What is it? Eli dismounted, looked past him at the house. Cora was inside, lamplight glowing in the window. Merrick came to the smithy, Eli said. Asked about you. Asked about her. Garrett went still. What'd you tell him? Nothing. But he already knows, Garrett. He's got men watching your place. And he's got papers. What kind of papers? Contract. Says she agreed to work for him for 2 years in exchange for room and board. Says she ran before the term was up. That ain't... Don't matter if it's real or not. It's legal. He's got a judge's signature. Garrett's hands clenched. She ain't going back to him. Might not be up to you. Eli stepped closer, voice low. Listen, Merrick's not just some rancher. He owns half this county, the bank, the railroad spur. Hell, he probably owns the judge who signed that paper. You cross him, you lose everything. I already lost everything. Then don't lose more. Eli paused. He's coming for her, Garrett, soon. And when he does, you gotta decide if you're gonna step aside or start a war you can't win. Behind them, the kitchen door opened. Cora stood on the porch, wrapped in a shawl. She'd heard enough. Ma'am, Eli said, quiet. Is it true? Did you run from Oswin Merrick? She came down the steps slow, face pale but set. Yeah. And there was a contract? He called it that. What would you call it? Her jaw tightened. Prison. Eli looked between them, saw the way Garrett moved slightly in front of her without thinking, saw the way she didn't step back. You know what he did to her? Garrett said, voice hard. Don't matter what I know. Matters what the law says. The law's wrong. Maybe, but it's still the law. Eli put his hat back on. I'm sorry, both of you, but this is coming, whether you're ready or not. He rode off into the darkening hills. Garrett and Cora stood in the yard, silence thick between them. You should have told me, he said finally. Told you what? That he had papers. That this was legal trouble? Not just what? Not just some whore running from her keeper? Her voice sharp. That what you thought? I didn't. You did. Everyone does. He turned to face her. I lied to the sheriff for you. I didn't ask you to. No, you just let me. His voice rising now, frustration breaking through. Let me risk everything without telling me what I was risking it for. You want me to apologize for surviving? I want you to be honest. About what? She stepped closer, eyes blazing. About the fact that Merrick bought me from a brothel when I was 22. About how he dressed it up as a job, called himself my protector. About how he locked me in a cellar for 3 days when I tried to leave. She held up her wrists, scars visible in the lamplight. This honest enough for you? Garrett stared at her. At the marks he'd seen that first morning and hadn't asked about. At the truth he'd let himself not see, because seeing it would mean choosing sides. I didn't know, he said quietly. You didn't want to know. Nobody does. Easier to think I'm just some girl who made bad choices than to think about what those choices cost. That ain't fair. Nothing about this is fair. She was shaking now. You think I wanted to end up here? You think I wanted to drag you into this? I told you I'd leave. I told you from the start, and I told you to stay. Why? She nearly shouted it. Why do you care? You don't know me. You don't owe me nothing. So why risk your land, your name, your... Because I couldn't save my daughter. The words tore out of him. Because I watched her die, and I did nothing. And I've been living in this empty house for 3 years, waiting to feel something besides guilt. And then you showed up, and I thought... He stopped. Couldn't finish. You thought what? That saving me would fix you? Her voice cracked. I ain't your redemption, Garrett. I'm just a girl who ran out of places to run. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to ease your conscience by playing hero, but you can't save someone who don't want saving. He went quiet. That hit somewhere deep. She grabbed the blue enamel cup from the porch railing where she'd left it earlier, her morning habit now, bringing him coffee in that cup. She slammed it down on the step between them. It didn't break, but the sound was violent. Your wife didn't just leave, did she? Cora said, voice low and dangerous. She blamed you. Garrett's face went white. Don't. She blamed you for your daughter dying, I heard you, at night, muttering in your sleep. I should have stayed. I should have been there. But you weren't late because you were working. You left because you were scared. Stop. She was right to blame you, Cora said, each word a knife, because you were too much of a coward to watch your own child die. Silence, complete and total. Garrett's voice when it came was barely there. Get out. She stared at him, seeing too late what she'd done. I didn't mean, get out of my house. Garrett, now. Where am I supposed to go? He looked at her, face empty. I don't care. The words hung in the air like smoke. Cora's eyes filled. She turned, went inside, came back with her few things, in a cloth bundle, walked past him without looking. He stood there, watched her go into the dark. The blue cup sat on the step between them, no longer comfort, no longer hope. Just a reminder of what he'd let himself want and what it cost to want anything at all. He picked it up, held it, thought about throwing it as far as he could, didn't, set it back on the shelf inside. Then sat on the porch in the dark and tried to remember how to breathe. She left before dawn, and he let her, which was the same as killing her himself. Garrett woke on the porch where he'd fallen asleep, body stiff from cold, gray light creeping across the land. He stood, joints protesting, went inside. The house was too quiet. Her blanket sat folded on the chair. Perfect corners, like she'd taken time even while leaving. The blue cup sat clean on the table, dried and put away where it belonged. She'd washed her dishes before she left. He stood there looking at that cup, that folded blanket, and something in his chest cracked open. Moved to the bedroom. The trunk was closed. Mary's dress still folded inside, untouched. But on top of it, a scrap of paper, torn from a flour sack. In careful pencil, thank you for the kindness. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. He read it 3 times, then crushed it in his fist, went outside. The garden she'd started weeding looked different in morning light, half finished, like someone had meant to come back. The mended shirt still hung on the line, moving slightly in the wind, evidence everywhere. Small acts of care she'd done while he slept, while he worked, while he wasn't looking. She'd been trying to say thank you the only way she knew how. Through work, through tending, through making broken things whole again. And he'd thrown her out into the dark. He checked the barn. Empty. Checked the loft. Just hay and the indent where she'd slept that first week. She was gone. Really gone. Panic set in then. Cold and hard. He saddled his horse fast, rode toward town. She'd have gone to the road, tried to walk somewhere. Couldn't have gotten far in the dark. Past the turnoff to Red Bluff. Kept going south toward the highway. Dust and rocks and endless nothing. No sign of her. He rode back, checked the other direction. North toward the hills. Still nothing. By noon, he was at Doc Voss's house, desperate. Have you seen her? Doc looked up from her porch, coffee in hand. Took in his face, wild, barely holding on. No. When did she leave? Last night. He stopped. Couldn't say it. We fought. I told her to go. And she went. Yeah. Doc set her cup down slow. Garrett, she ran because that's what she does. You can't save someone who don't want saving. I know that. His voice cracking. But I can't just let her. You already did, Doc said, not unkind, just true. He rode home in silence. The house felt dead when he walked in. Saw the garden again, the shirt, the cup, the blanket. Every small thing she'd done. Every quiet way she'd tried to belong here. He'd destroyed it all with 4 words. I don't care. Mid-afternoon, Eli arrived. Horse lathered, breathing hard. They found her, Eli said before Garrett could speak. Garrett's stomach dropped. Where? Merrick's men. Picked her up on the road, about 10 miles south. She's at his ranch now. Is she alive? That's all I know. Garrett was already moving toward the barn. Eli caught his arm. What are you planning? Bringing her back. He's got 10 men in the law on his side, Garrett. You ride in there, you're a dead man. Don't care? Well, I do. Eli's voice hardened. And she probably does too. Garrett jerked free. She's in danger because of me. Because He couldn't finish. Started saddling his horse with shaking hands. This ain't about her, is it? Eli said quietly. It's about you. About making up for... for Mary. Garrett stopped. Hands frozen on the saddle. Back to Eli. You think saving her makes it right? Eli asked. You think dying for her fixes what you did? I ain't trying to fix nothing. Then what are you trying to do? I'm trying to stop running. The words exploded out of him, echoed in the barn. I'm trying to stop being the man who walks away when people need him. Silence. Then Eli, softer. What happened with Mary wasn't about walking away? Yes, it was. Garrett's voice broke. It was exactly that. He saddled the horse anyway. Rode alone toward the ridge overlooking Merrick's property. 20 miles south, took him till near dark. Sat on that ridge in the dying light and looked down at the compound. Main house lit up, big as a hotel. Bunkhouse for the men, barn twice the size of his. Fences everywhere. Cattle moving in dark shapes across the fields. Guards at the gates. More walking the perimeter. He couldn't get to her. Even if he tried, they'd kill him before he got close. And then she'd be alone with Merrick, and no one would come for her at all. He sat there until full dark. Until the lights in the main house went out one by one. Until there was nothing but stars and cold and the knowledge that he'd failed again. Coyotes started howling, close, all around him in the hills. And Garrett Cole, who hadn't prayed in 3 years, who'd stopped believing God listened to men like him, bowed his head and tried. I can't lose another one. Voice rough, breaking. Not her, please, not her. The coyotes howled louder. Wind picked up. No answer came. He stayed until midnight. Then rode home alone because there was nothing else to do. Eli was waiting on his porch, sitting in the dark. Figured you'd go anyway, Eli said. Garrett dismounted. Didn't speak. Just stood there in the yard, everything inside him breaking. Come sit down, Eli said. Can't. Garrett, I wasn't late when Mary got sick. The words came out flat, dead. I was there. I saw the fever starting. I saw her getting worse. Eli went very still. Rebecca asked me to stay with her, hold her hand, pray, and I told her I had to check the fence line. Garrett's voice cracked. There was a break in the wire. Cattle might get out. That's what I said. But that was a lie. Garrett, you don't have to. I rode out because I couldn't stand to watch. He looked at Eli then, eyes wet in the moonlight. My daughter was dying, and I ran because I was scared, because I'm a coward. And when I came back 4 hours later, she was gone. Rebecca was holding her. And she looked at me like... He stopped, breathed. Like she knew, like she could see right through me. She left because she couldn't look at me anymore. And, she was right to go. Because what kind of man abandons his dying child to check a fence? Eli stood slow, came down the steps, put his good hand on Garrett's shoulder. The kind who's human, Eli said quietly. The kind who was too scared to watch someone he loved slip away. That don't make you evil, Garrett. Just makes you a man. It makes me the same man who threw Cora out into the dark. And Garrett's voice was barely there now. Same coward, different night, and now she's... He couldn't finish. I keep trying to save people and all I do is hurt them. So, what are you gonna do? Garrett looked at the house. At the lamplight still burning in the window, at the garden half weeded, at the shirt still hanging on the line. I don't know, he whispered. But I can't run this time. I can't be that man again. Eli nodded, squeezed his shoulder once. Then don't be. They stood there in the dark, two men carrying different wounds, trying to figure out how to keep living when living hurt this much. Above them, the stars turned. The coyotes went quiet. And in the house behind them, the blue cup sat clean and waiting, proof that someone had been there, someone had cared, someone had tried, even if he'd been too broken to see it until she was gone. He stopped checking the fence line. And that's when the town knew something in Garrett Cole had finally broken. 3 days passed. Garrett didn't go to town, didn't ride the property, didn't do anything but sit on the porch and stare at the garden she'd started weeding. The cattle could have wandered through a dozen breaks in the wire. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Eli came by the second day with food, bread, dried beef, jar of preserves, left it on the porch rail. Garrett watched him from the window, but didn't go out. Eli stood there a moment, looking at the house like he was deciding whether to knock. Finally, just tipped his hat to the empty porch and rode off. The food sat there until dark. Then Garrett brought it inside, set it on the table next to the blue cup, didn't eat. Third day, Sheriff Parrish came. Garrett was splitting wood when he heard the horse, set the axe down slow, waited. Parrish dismounted, adjusted his gun belt, looked at the house, the overgrown garden, the shirt still hanging on the line 3 days later. Heard you were harboring Merrick's girl, Parrish said. That true? Was. Good, Parrish nodded. Town's better off without that trouble. Garrett looked at him, really looked. Saw a man who'd worn a badge for 30 years and learned to choose peace over justice every single time. She was in danger, Garrett said quietly, and you knew it. What I knew was that Merrick's got a legal claim. What I knew was that getting involved would have made things worse for everyone. For everyone. Or just for you. Parrish's jaw tightened. You watch your tone, Cole. Why? You gonna arrest me for having an opinion? Garrett stepped closer. You knew what he did to her. You knew those rope scars weren't from falling down. And you looked the other way because it was easier. The law let him keep her like property. So maybe the law's wrong. Well, that ain't for you to decide. No, Garrett said. It's for men like you. Men with badges who choose comfort over conscience. Parrish's face went red. You got no right. I got every right. I looked that girl in the eye and told her she was safe. And then I threw her out, and men like you handed her right back to the man who hurt her. So don't come on my land and talk to me about law. Silence. Parrish stared at him, seeing something he hadn't expected. A man with nothing left to lose. Merrick's a powerful man, Parrish said finally, quieter. He donates to the church, pays his taxes, keeps the economy running. And that makes what he did acceptable? Makes it complicated? No, Garrett said. It makes you a coward, and it makes me one too. Parrish opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing left to say. He mounted his horse, looked down at Garrett. Stay away from Merrick's place, he said. I'm warning you as a friend. We ain't friends. Parrish rode off. Garrett stood in the yard alone, realized something cold and clear the whole town had known. And every single one of them had let it happen, because Merrick owned their livelihoods, their comfort, their willingness to pretend mercy cost nothing. He walked behind the barn and vomited into the weeds. Night came slow. Garrett walked the property in the dark. Couldn't stay in the house. Too many ghosts. Everywhere he looked, he saw her. The garden where she'd pulled weeds on her knees, dressed dusty, hair falling in her face. The porch where she'd sat that one evening listening to coyotes, asking him questions he didn't know how to answer. The clothesline, where the mended shirt still hung, fading in the sun. She'd been here 13 days. Less than 2 weeks. But she'd touched everything. The chicken coop where she'd gotten pecked and cursed. The barn loft where she'd slept that first week, scared and silent. The table where she'd finally sat down, finally let herself belong. He walked to the fence line he used to check every morning. The wire hung loose in 3 places now. Cattle had probably drifted south toward Hollow Creek. Used to be that would have eaten at him. Now it just felt empty. That fence had been his ritual, his penance. Checking it every morning, like if he just kept things secure enough, nothing else would break. But everything had broken anyway. Mary, Rebecca, Cora, Every person he'd tried to hold close had slipped through his fingers like water through a fence. He sat down in the dirt, back against a post, and let himself feel it. All of it. The weight of 3 years of pretending work could save him. The lie he'd told himself that isolation was safer than risk. The truth that he'd sent Cora into the dark, not because she'd hurt him, but because she'd seen him, really seen him, and he couldn't stand being known. Above him, stars turned. Wind moved through the grass. Somewhere distant, coyotes called. He thought about Mary's last day, the fever climbing, her small body burning, Rebecca begging him to stay, to hold their daughter's hand, and him saying he had to check the fence, had to fix something, anything, because watching her die was unbearable. He thought about coming back 4 hours later to silence, to Rebecca's face, empty of everything but grief and accusation, to the tiny body under a sheet. He thought about 3 years of sleeping on the floor because he couldn't stand the bedroom, of keeping Rebecca's cup on the shelf like a shrine, of checking fences every morning like repetition could rewrite the past. And he thought about Cora using that cup every single morning, not because it was special, just because it was there, because she wasn't trying to worship the past, she was trying to live in the present. Rebecca had left that cup behind because it meant nothing to her. She'd left everything behind, the house, the land, him, because none of it mattered more than getting away from the man who'd let their daughter die alone. But Cora had used it, had washed it every day, had filled it with coffee and set it in front of him like an offering. The difference hit him like a fist. Rebecca had run from grief. Cora had run toward hope, and he'd thrown them both away. No, that wasn't right. Rebecca had chosen to leave. She'd had every right. He couldn't have stopped her and wouldn't have tried. But Cora hadn't chosen anything except survival. And when she'd finally found a place that felt safe, he'd destroyed it. With 4 words. I don't care. He stood up slow, looked at the broken fence, the dark land, the empty house in the distance. Thought about Sheriff Parrish's warning, about Merrick's 10 men and legal papers and the judge in his pocket, about the fact that riding in there would probably get him killed. And he realized something simple. He didn't care about that either. Not anymore. He'd spent 3 years being scared, scared to watch Mary die, scared to face Rebecca's judgment, scared to hope again, scared to let someone in. He was done being scared. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Storm building over the hills. He could smell rain coming. That clean electric smell that meant the sky was about to break open. He walked back to the house, picked up the blue cup from the table, held it in both hands. Then he set it down, gentle. I'm coming for you, he said to the empty room, to Cora, wherever she was, to himself. I'm coming, and I ain't running this time. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall. He rode into Merrick's yard at noon with no gun, no plan, and nothing left to lose, which made him the most dangerous man in the county. Dawn had come with clarity. Garrett saddled his horse, checked the cinch twice, stood in the barn, looking at the empty loft where she'd slept, at the hay still indented from her shape. Eli arrived as he was mounting. You're going. Yeah. You'll die. Garrett looked at him. Maybe, but at least I won't die running. Eli studied him a long moment, saw something different in his face. Not recklessness, but peace. The peace of a man who'd finally stopped being afraid. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a pocket watch, silver, worn smooth, his father's. Then take this, Eli said, so someone remembers you tried. Garrett took it, held the weight of it. Thank you. Don't thank me, just come back. Garrett rode south. The land opened up around him, wide sky, empty fields, dust rising under his horse's hooves, storm clouds building in the west, moving slow, past the church on the edge of town. Pastor Wilkins was outside sweeping the steps, looked up, saw Garrett riding with purpose. Morning, Garrett. Garrett stopped. Pastor, where you headed? To do the right thing. Wilkins leaned on his broom. That sounds like trouble. Probably. You want me to pray for you? Garrett thought about it. About 3 years of unanswered prayers. About sitting on that ridge in the dark, begging God to help and hearing only coyotes. Yeah, he said finally. Reckon I could use it. Wilkins nodded. Then I will. Go with grace, son. Garrett rode on. Merrick's compound sprawled across the valley like a small kingdom. Main house 3 stories, white columns, wraparound porch, bunkhouse for the hands. Barn bigger than most churches. Corrals and fences stretching to the horizon. Guards at the gate saw him coming, rifles across their chests, watching. Garrett rode straight up to them. Didn't slow, didn't stop until his horse was 10 feet from the gate. Tell Merrick Garrett Cole's here for Cora Finch. The guards looked at each other. One was young, maybe 20. The other older, scarred face. Seen violence. Mr. Merrick ain't expecting visitors, the older one said. Don't care. Tell him anyway. You armed? No. Then you're either brave or stupid. Both, Garrett said. Now get him. The younger guard disappeared toward the house. The older one kept his rifle ready, eyes on Garrett. "You know what you're doing?" the guard asked. "Not even a little bit." Almost smile from the guard. "Respect that." 5 minutes. Then the younger guard returned with Oswin Merrick himself. Merrick was 51, tall, silver-haired, dressed like he was heading to Sunday service. Everything about him was polished. Boots, vest, the watch chain across his chest. He looked at Garrett the way a man looks at a dog that's wandered onto his property. "Mr. Cole," Merrick said, voice smooth. "This is unexpected. Let her go." "I'm afraid I don't know what you mean." "Cora Finch. You took her 3 days ago. Let her go." Merrick smiled, patient, condescending. "Miss Finch is here of her own accord. She has a contract with me. 2 years of service in exchange for room and board." "That ain't a contract. That's slavery." "The law disagrees." Merrick pulled a folded paper from his vest. "Judge Morrison signed this himself. It's all quite legal." "Legal don't make it right." "Perhaps not, but it makes it binding." Behind Merrick, a crowd was gathering, ranch hands coming out of the bunkhouse, kitchen staff on the porch, word spreading fast, someone challenging Merrick in his own yard, and from town, more people arriving. Must have seen him ride through. Doc Voss's buggy, Sheriff Parrish on horseback, even a few townspeople, drawn by the spectacle. Garrett raised his voice, spoke not just to Merrick, but to everyone watching. This man kept a woman against her will, bound her with ropes, locked her in a cellar when she tried to leave. He pointed at Merrick. "That ain't employment, that's kidnapping." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Merrick's face went cold. "You're slandering me, Cole. That's actionable." "Then sue me. But first, let everyone see what you did to her." I treated her with respect." "You treated her like property," Merrick signaled his men. "Remove him from my land." 3 hands moved forward. Garrett didn't back down, didn't even flinch, just stood his ground. "Garrett," Doc Voss called from her buggy. "Don't." Then, the front door of the main house opened. Cora stood there. She looked smaller somehow, bruise fresh on her cheekbone, dress torn at the shoulder, but she was standing, walking out onto that porch. Every eye turned to her. "Stop," she said, voice quiet but carrying. Everyone froze. She walked down the steps slow, limping slightly, came to stand between Garrett and Merrick, facing the crowd. "He's telling the truth," she said. Merrick's face went dark. "Cora, get back inside." "No," she looked at him. No fear anymore. Just exhaustion. "I'm done being scared of you." She turned to the crowd, rolled up her sleeves. The rope scars showed clear in the noon sun, white lines circling both wrists, old and new, layered together. Women in the crowd gasped. Men shifted uncomfortably. "Oswin Merrick bought me from a brothel 2 years ago," Cora said, voice steady now. "Called it a job. Called himself my protector. But when I tried to leave, he had me tied up and locked in his cellar for 3 days. She held up her wrists. "These are from the ropes. You want to see the marks on my ankles, too?" Silence. Complete. Sheriff Parrish sat on his horse, face gray. He'd known. They'd all known. And they'd let it happen. Merrick stepped forward, voice tight. "She signed a contract." "Under duress," Doc Voss called out. "That makes it void." "And she had choices." "No," Garrett said. She had survival. There's a difference." Cora looked at him then. First time since she'd walked out. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "Why'd you come?" she asked quietly. Garrett met her gaze. "Because I was wrong. You said no one wanted you, but I do." He took a breath. "I want you to stay, not because I need saving, because you deserve a home." The words hung in the air. Merrick's voice cut through. "Sheriff, arrest them both. Trespassing, slander, theft of property." "She ain't property," Parrish said. His voice shook slightly. He dismounted slow, stood between Merrick and Cora, looked at her scars, at her bruised face, at the exhaustion in her eyes. "I ain't arresting nobody," Parrish said. Merrick went red. "You work for me. I work for the law. The law says a contract signed under duress is void." "Doc's right about that." Parrish looked at the crowd, at Merrick, at his own badge. "And even if it wasn't, I ain't enforcing slavery in my county." Merrick stared at him, at the crowd watching, at his power crumbling in real time. "This isn't over," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Yeah," Garrett said. "It is." Merrick looked at him, at Cora, at the town that was supposed to belong to him, now standing silent and judging. He turned and walked back into his house, slammed the door. The crowd exhaled as one. Parrish looked at Cora. "Ma'am, you're free to go." She nodded, couldn't speak. Garrett held out his hand. She looked at it, this hand that had helped her up that first morning, that had offered her water and bread and safety. She took it. They walked to his horse together. He helped her up, climbed on behind her. The crowd parted to let them through. As they rode past Doc Voss, she nodded once. Approval and relief. Eli was waiting at the gate. Saw them coming, saw Cora alive, saw Garrett whole. "Told you to come back?" Eli said. "Yeah, well, figured I'd listen for once." They rode home in silence. Storm clouds overhead finally breaking open, rain starting to fall. They buried the blue cup in the garden. Not to forget, but to let the ground turn grief into something that could grow. 2 weeks had passed since Merrick's compound. 2 weeks of rain and healing and learning how to be in the same house without fear. Cora found the broken pieces while weeding. He'd smashed it against the porch post the night they fought, then swept up the shards and kept them. Couldn't throw them away, couldn't look at them, so he'd put them in a jar and tried to forget. She held up the largest piece, blue enamel catching the afternoon light. "What was this?" he told her. "Rebecca's cup. How he'd kept it on the shelf for 3 years. How Cora had used it every morning without knowing. How it had meant too much for too long. Should have let it go sooner," he said. She turned the shard over in her palm. "You want to bury it?" He thought about that. About Rebecca leaving, about Mary dying, about 3 years of holding on to ghosts. "Yeah," he said. "I think I do." They dug a small hole in the garden she'd started, the one still half finished, waiting. Put the pieces in together, covered them with earth. "Something good ought to come from it," she said. He nodded, handed her a packet of seeds, tomatoes. They planted them over the buried cup, watered the soil, stood back. "Think that they'll grow?" she asked. "Don't know, but I reckon they got a chance." That evening they sat on the porch, coffee in mismatched tin cups. No more fancy enamel, just simple and real. Cora watched the sun go down over the hills. Her bruises had faded to yellow-green. The limp was almost gone. She'd started eating at the table without being asked. Started sitting instead of standing. Small changes, but they meant everything. "Got a letter yesterday," she said, "from Merrick's lawyer." Garrett tensed. "Says the contract's void. I'm free." She looked at him. "So I could leave, go anywhere." He gripped his cup, didn't speak. "But I ain't going nowhere," she said quietly. He exhaled. Hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. "You sure?" "Yeah." She smiled slightly. "You said I didn't have to be wanted, just had to be. Well, I want to be here, not because I got nowhere else. Because you made this nowhere feel like home." Long silence. The kind that didn't need filling. In the distance, coyotes started howling. She didn't flinch, just listened, peaceful. "They sound different now," she said. "They sound the same. You're different." She thought about that. Maybe. He looked at her in the fading light. This woman who'd shown up broken and taught him what mercy looked like, who'd mended his daughter's dress and his broken fence, and something deeper he hadn't known was still alive. "You weren't the one I saved," he said softly. "You were the one who taught me what mercy looked like." She met his eyes. "Then I reckon we saved each other." The sun dropped below the hills, stars beginning to show. 2 silhouettes on a porch, still and quiet and healing. The garden behind them held broken pieces of the past, seeds of the future, and the promise that grief, when planted deep enough, could grow into something worth keeping. They sat in that silence, not the empty kind, but the full kind, the kind that meant home. And for the first time in 3 years, the house didn't echo. It breathed.